good morning, or good afternoon. For this week, we will be discussing managing your student loans. As we are moving through the semester, I want you all to be aware that midterms are in about 2 weeks. So the information that we will start covering today will be on our midterm. Your midterm will basically strictly be about student loan information. This week it's gonna be a little different this week. You won't have a YouTube video to upload, but I'll get into that in the other video when I tell you about your assignments. But before you watch this video for the week on your your lecture for student loans, I want you all to think about everything that you all know about student loans, everything that you currently think you know. That will be a part of your homework assignment. I want to know everything before you read the article for this week, before you watch this video of these lecture notes. I want to know everything that you currently know about student loan. The course itself was designed to give you more of an in-depth knowledge of student loan because as you will read the article that you're going to read this week, it's talking about student loan debt is at 1.6 trillion. That's the current student loan debt rate at the current moment, 1.6 trillion. This is something that is an ongoing debt. It's nothing that you can just wipe away in a couple of months. If you've been watching the candidates that have been running for election, especially the Biden and Harris campaign, this is something that they're pushing. They're pushing actually to either terminate student loan debt or for students that attend HBCUs to eliminate the student loan debt because the student loan debt now is such a huge problem. And it's a what I like to call a good debt because you're getting in debt to pay for your education, which will then result in you getting a job to pay back the loan. But student loan is a huge topic. It takes us about 3 to 4 weeks to cover everything in depth so you'll know. So I want you all to please pay close attention because everything that we're going over will be on your midterm. It's going to be no surprises. Literally everything that we're going to go into is going to talk about is going to be on your midterm. So basically, we're getting into managing your student loans. So we're getting into how you're going to manage your student loans once you graduate. So it's a basic understanding of the repayment process and also how do you go about getting the loan. So that's what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So again, we're going to talk about financial aid landscape, loan services, loan basic, repayment plans. If you're going to postpone your loans upon graduation, delinquency, default, and collections, as well as discharge, forgiveness, and cancellation. So these are the topics that we will be discussing in the upcoming weeks. So the financial aid landscape, what are the sources of financial aid? So where do you get money to attend school basically? So financial aid can come through the federal government, the state government, your particular college or university, private foundation, employees and private companies, and professional and service organizations. All of these put in money to create what they call the financial aid landscape. So now to be more specific, your financial aid history. So what types of financial aid have you received or can you receive? They can be in the form of grants, which we know grants you do not pay back. That is money that is given that you are not responsible to pay back. Work study. Work study is also a form of financial aid. So basically with work study, how it works at some institutions, a portion of your bill, you have to pay it off through federal work study. Whatever you don't pay off or whatever hours you don't complete, then you have to pay the difference. Scholarships, which we know you do not have to pay back. Usually you have to maintain a certain GPA to keep the scholarship. Merit awards, student loans, and then parent loans. So we know student loans and parent loans, you have to repay those back. So then we also will be looking at gift aid versus self-help aid, federal student loans versus private student loans, knowing your balances, and how many of you know the total current balance of your student loans. So I will use myself as an example. So currently, as of right now, my student loan debt for undergraduate is 40,000. My student loan debt for graduate studies, the loan is a private loan. It's a $20,000 loan currently. But when I repay the loan, I will be paying back almost 35 to $40,000. So that's my current student loan debt. So it's always, even though you're in undergrad and you're not, some of you all have not graduated or you're looking forward to graduating, you need to know currently what is your student loan debt? What is the total balance of all your student loans? So then we're going to touch private loans. And I'm going to do something different because we're going to have to go into more detail on a private loan. So private student loans, they may require payments while you're still in school. So that means you can't defer the loan. That means while you're receiving your undergraduate degree, you're paying on the loan as well. They have variable interest rates, and some can be greater than 18%. Now, I want you all to remember this. It's a difference between a variable interest rate and a fixed interest rate. So, a variable interest rate is an interest rate that will change over the life of the loan. I'm going to say that again. A variable interest rate will change over the life of a loan, but a fixed interest rate is just what it says. It's fixed. It will never change. So if you take out a student loan and they tell you, for example, your interest rate is 5% fixed, that means no matter what happens in the economy, if we have a recession or anything, your student loan payment will stay at the interest rate will stay at 5%. Now, if they tell you have a variable interest of 5%, that means your loan will start at 5%. Now, let's say we have a recession, then your interest rate could go up to 18%. So, which means if we look back at the time we just did talked about on last week, interest rate can affect the amount of money you pay back. So that we always remember it's a variable interest rate and a fixed interest rate. The loan, a private loan may not be it could not be subsidized. It could require that you have an established credit record, which means you need to have already proven that you have credit history. The cost of a private student loan will depend upon your credit score as well. You will need a cosigner. Federal loans, you do not need a cosigner, but with private loans, you need a cosigner. You cannot consolidate those loans into the direct consolidation loan, and they do not offer forbearance or deferment options, and no, they do not offer a loan forgiveness program. So those are some of the qualities of a private student loan. I'm going to touch on private student loans more this semester than we had in the past because I think most students, if you go to grad school or anything past undergrad, you 9 times out of 10 you take out a private student loan if you can't get the federal loan. But we'll touch bases there as we get further into the discussion. So your loan history, the National Student Loan Data System, which is NSLDS. This is a centralized national database and it stores the information on federal grants and loans, nothing private. Everything that they store is federal. It shows how much aid you have received and it displays your current enrollment status. So that means whether you currently are enrolled and if you are enrolled, if you're part-time or if you're full-time. So that system carries all of that information. And that's why financial aid has to have that information. So that's why if you look at now that we're online, that is why we still have to take attendance because you still have to be accounted for. Because if you are not attending class, the federal government will want that money back that you took out for student loans. So that's why we're still taking attendance, and you have to get things straight with financial aid, even though we're online, because all of this has to go through the National Student Loan Data System. And that's so if you're not enrolled, the federal government will get that money back and you still will be responsible to pay for it, but they won't be sending out money to an institution and the student is not there. So this is the home page. It should look kind of familiar. When you first probably did your FAFSA, you probably saw this page. So that's what the home page looks like. To log in, you will need to know your social security number, 2 letters of your last name, your date of birth, and your PIN. And the PIN is the same PIN that you created when you did your FAFSA application. That's the same information. Your loan services. So this is who will collect the payment on your loan. There are several different loan services, excuse me, when you go back into the repayment, but the federal government will decide who your loan servicer will be. So that's how you will do customer service inquiries if you needed to, and they perform any administrative tasks associated with maintaining your account. All of that is done through your loan service. So now with all that being said, we're going to get into the loan basics. So the current federal student loan types that you can get are direct subsidized, direct consolidation, federal student loans, direct unsub, direct plus loan for parents, and then if you're looking at graduate school, they have what they call direct plus loans for graduate or professional students. So we're going to talk about all of these except for the Perkins loan. So we're going to look at unsubsidized and subsidized. It is the difference between subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, but we'll get in that into the future in the weeks to come. Parent plus loans, that's just what it means. That is a loan that your parent takes out. If your parent takes out a parent plus loan, and it's time to go into repayment, you are not required to make that payment. Your parent took out the loan, they will be required to make that payment back. But you will have to make the payment back on any federal student loans that's either subsidized or unsubsidized that you take out, and as well as if you do what they call the grad or professional studies. That is a loan. That student loan is strictly for when you want to work on your master's, a EDD, a PhD, or educational specialist. Those are the degrees or some training past your undergraduate level. That's the loan that you will use for that area. So, how is the interest calculated on your loans? If you have been paying attention or know your student loan status, interest is accruing on your loan every day. So if you have a federal student loan and you are not repaying on it right now while you're in school, just know interest is accruing on that loan every day. So this is how they come up with it. So the simple is called the simple daily interest, means that interest does not compound unless there is a specific reason for it to do so. So basically, you have a daily interest that is accruing every day. So we're going to use this example. So on this example, it's a $10,000 loan with an interest rate of 4.66%. Now, to find out how much interest is calculating every day, you take the interest rate, which is 4.6%, you divide it by the number of days in the year, which is 365, and you multiply that by the outstanding principal balance. And that on this particular loan, that means you have $1.27 accruing every day. So think about it like this. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but think about it on this way. That's $1.27, 7 days a week, every month for every year that you're in school. So think about $1.27 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start adding up from every month, every day, every year that you're in school, it will add up to a lot. Now, this chart, I'm going to give you the new interest rates, but as of last year, which was July 1st, 2019 until June 30th, 2020. This is what the student loan looked like. Every year on June 30th, the interest rate, if they change the interest rate, that is when a new interest rate will come out. So as of June 30th, 2020, for undergrad, your subsidized student loan should have a fixed interest rate of 4.53%, and your unsubsidized should also have a 4.53% fixed interest rate. I'm not going to look at graduate or professional because you all are not at that level yet, but as you can see, that interest rate is more, it's 6.8%. And for the Parent Plus loan, you're looking at 7.8 fixed. Now, if we look at the repayment options for the Federal Stafford Direct Loan Undergraduate, that goes into repayment 6 months after school. So, for any seniors or when you get ready to graduate, when you graduate in May, 6 months from May, your first student loan payment will be due. Around August, September, they will send you out a bill letting you know this is how much your payment will be, and this is the new due date for your payment. So 6 months after you graduate, that is a key term to remember. On the exam, if I ask you when do student loans go back into repayment, you will tell me 6 months. Now, if you remember earlier, I talked about subsidized and unsubsidized. So the difference between the two, unsubsidized interest accrues while you're in school. So that means While you're in school, interest is accrued. That's that same simple daily interest that we just looked at. That interest is accruing every day while you're in school if the loan is unsubsidized. If it is a subsidized loan, that means no interest is charged while you're in school. But unsubsidized interest accrues while you're in school. And subsidized, the government pays the interest on that loan. That's why you're not getting any interest charge. But if you look, most student loans are between most of the loans that you will have will be unsubsidized. So I just wanted to point that out. So make sure you pay close attention to this chart with the difference between subsidized and unsub loan. So this is an example. I'd like to say that it's not a realistic example of how your first payment will go 6 months after you graduate. So we're looking at that loan that was $10,000 and the interest was 4.6%. So their first payment, they had no fees on the account, so no fees were charged. The interest for that particular loan was $38.83. The principal was $65.58. So the monthly payment was $104.41. So now to break that down a little bit more, out of that $104.41, 38.83 went to the interest and 65.58 went to the principal. Realistically, it would be the other way around. So that means in a real scenario, a majority of your payment of that $104 would actually go to the interest, and you would only get maybe about $38 to the actual principal of the loan. That is a real life example, which I will show you probably next week, a more realistic example of that. So now this is where we get into repayment plans. So when you graduate 6 months out, they're going to automatically put you on what we call the traditional repayment plan or the standard repayment plan. Remember that standard and traditional, those mean the same exact thing. Standard payment plan or your traditional payment plan. So when you graduate, that's the plan that they're automatically going to put you on, the standard or traditional, which means you will have your loan paid off quicker, but your payments will be so much more expensive. The average student right out of college cannot afford the traditional repayment plan. So that's why they created more repayment plans, which we will get into. So these are a list of all of your repayment plans that you have. You have the 10-year standard, you have the extended, the graduated, the extended graduated, the consolidation standard, and the consolidation graduate. Those are all considered traditional plans. Now, if you cannot afford the traditional plan, that's when we get into income driven repayment plans. So then you have the income base, income contingent, and pay as you earn. Always remember, traditional is two types of payments: traditional plans and income driven plans. You always want to remember that. So on your midterm, I may ask you to list three of the traditional plans. So if I ask for three of the traditional plans, I'm talking 10-year standard, extended graduated, consolidation standard, or consolidation graduate. And you only have three income payment repayment plans. Now I'm going to break this up. So if you looked at our last slide this week, we're just going to talk about the 10-year, the extended, and the graduate. I'm going to try to break it up so it won't be too much to try to take in at one time. So the standard repayment plan, 6 months after you graduate, this is the plan that everyone is on. You automatically are applied the standard repayment plan. So under this plan, the borrower will pay a fixed amount that ensures that the loans will be paid in full within the repayment period. Payments will be at least $50 per month. For subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loans, the repayment period is 10 years. So that means with the standard repayment plan, 6 months after you graduate, in 10 years, you will have the loan paid off in full. Now, if you go and consolidate that loan, and when I say consolidate, that means if you have 3 or 4 loans here and there through the federal government, you can consolidate those 3 or 4 loans. It doesn't matter how many you have. You can have 10. You can consolidate all of those loans into one loan. and then you can have 10 to 30 years to pay off that loan. So they gave you an additional time because you consolidated the loan. And that it just depends on how much in debt you are. And that when I say in debt, that means how much student loan debt you have. Now, for borrowers who do not have consolidation loan, this plan results in the lowest total interest paid because the repayment period is shorter. With all of your other repayment plans, they extend the term that you can pay it off. So if we go back and look at what we did last week when we looked at the car payments. So if the longer you extend it out, your payments are cheaper, but you are paying more in interest over the life of the loan. So that's why they encourage you to do the standard. Most college students, when you first graduate, you cannot afford a standard repayment plan. So I'm going to use me again for an example. When I graduated from South Carolina State in 2011, my student loan debt was 40,000, and I had about three student loans. So I had one that was maybe I'm going to say about $200 a month. Then I had one that was another two, and then I had one about 100. So my total payment right out of college, 6 months after, was about $500 a month. Now, when you first begin working, $500 a month is a lot to say you're paying on one thing. So then that's why I consolidated my student loans and I went on another repayment plan. So I encourage students, yes, you will pay less over the standard repayment plan, but if you cannot afford those monthly payments, that's when you start looking at other income plans that will best help you and be a benefit to you. Most people don't get on the extended repayment plan. You don't hear about that too much. But under the extended plan, the borrower will pay a fixed or graduated amount in an amount that will ensure that they will pay their loans in full within 25 years. So if we look back at the standard, we have 10 years. But with our extended, they gave us until 25 years to pay off the loan. So I want you all to look at the part that says that it will be a graduated amount. A graduated amount means, let's say your initial payment was under the standard repayment plan. Let's just say it was 250, and you switch to the extended repayment, and they recalculate everything, and so now your payment is like $80 a month. With the with the graduated payment, every 2 years your payment amount will change. So for 2 years you will have an $80 payment. Then after those 2 years, it could go up to 95. Then 2 years later, it could go up until at the end of the loan you will be paying what you normally would have paid under the standard repayment plan. So that's why I don't encourage this one as much. But you want a plan that is going to work for you at the particular place you are once you go into repayment. The graduated repayment plan, under this plan, the borrower will pay an amount that increases every 2 years and ensure that they will pay their loans in full within the repayment period. So it's a little bit still like the extended, but this one, instead of having 25 years like the extended, the graduated, you have anywhere you will pay that off in 10 years. So it's still like the traditional, but your payment will increase every 2 years. But if you consolidate the loan, you will have anywhere from 10 to 30 years to pay off the loan. And they said that the minimum payment will equal the amount of interest that accrues monthly. No one payment will be more than three times greater than the other payment. Most students don't go with the graduated because basically by the end of the loan, you will be right back where you were with the standard loan. So we've talked about standard, extended, and graduated. All of these are considered traditional repayment plans. So we talked about 10-year, extended, and the graduated. Now, if you want to consolidate your loans, it is a process. So just like I said, I had about three or four loans. I consolidated all my loans into one loan. When you consolidate your loans, that means you're going to consolidate all of your loans that you have into one. They will put like loans together. So if you have subsidized loan and unsub, they're going to group all the sub loans together and they're going to group all the unsub together. They're not going to mix them up. They will group them together. The interest rate will be the weighted average of your consolidation loan, and the interest rate is rounded up to the nearest highest 1/8 or 1%, and there's no interest rate cap on the loan. I encourage students to always, if consolidation works for you, go for it. Now, there is a catch to consolidation. It's usually is almost about a 6 months process. So they will have to defer your loans again. You have to go through the 6 months process. You have to get all the paperwork that they require you to get. Once you go into consolidation, they will send you paperwork telling you this is what your payment will be. If you agree to these terms, it is a binding agreement, which means once you consolidate your loans, you can't come out of it. It's a done deal. So you have to make sure that that is what you want to do because it is a done deal once you agree to a consolidation loan. I'm currently on a consolidation loan and it works in my favor. Some people, they don't work. So you have to see what is going to work for you at the space that you are at that time. So the benefit with loan consolidation, you have one lender, one monthly payment. You have flexible repayment options, reduce monthly payments. Again, you have a fixed interest rate. Subsidized and unsubsidized and Parent Plus loans all qualify for consolidation. Private loans, however, are ineligible for federal loan consolidation. So on your exam, if I ask you, can private loans be consolidated? Your answer would be no. Private loans cannot be consolidated with federal loans. Because a private loan is totally different from a federal loan, excuse me. Now, I don't want to get into the income payments too deep, but I'm going to focus on pay as you earn, income contingent, and income based. I'm not going to focus on the other two, but I'm going to focus on the IBR. So any income payment that is solely based off of your income. That means every year you have to submit to your provider, your student loan provider, how much your income is. So that means if you get a pay increase, your student loan payment can go up. If you get a decrease in pay, your student loan can go down. But it's strictly dependent on how much money you made. Now, these are the advantages of all of your income driven repayment plans, or definitely pay as you earn. The government will pay any unpaid interest on subsidized loans for up to 3 consecutive years. It is capitalized interest. Any remaining principal and interest will be forgiven after 20 years. So if you're paying on the loan and you've paid on the loan for 20 years, if we look back, you had 10 years to pay on traditional, but with income, you get an additional 10 years. So let's say at the end of your 20th year, you got $20,000 left over that you have not paid. That 20,000 will be forgiven. That means you do not have to pay it back. And pay as you earn count towards public service, which we will get into later. Now, some of the disadvantages: you pay more interest over the life of the loan, which we just talked about. You will continue to get reduced payments under pay as you earn, but you must submit information every year. Failure to submit that information, your student loan will go back to its original state. And you had to get loans between 2007 or after 2011. And unpaid portions could be a tax liability. So, for example, that 20,000 I just told you about, the government could tax you as making an extra 20,000 that year in income since you didn't have to pay. So, those are some of the advantages and disadvantages. So, on your midterm, I might ask you, what are some advantages of the income-driven repayment plans? This is what I'm asking for. I'm not going to focus too much on income contingent. It's almost like the previous income plan, but most students don't get it. The most income payment plans that students get is the IBR. I'm currently myself, I'm on the income based repayment plan. So income based is designed to reduce monthly payments to assist you with it makes your student loan debt more manageable. So payments are generally 15% of your income. And IBR has higher payments than pay as you earn, but usually lower payments than your income contingent. And so again, these are the advantages and disadvantages. With this one, you have a total of 25 years to pay off your loan, whereas with pay as you earn, you only had 20 years, and with income contingent, you have a 10 year, a 25, 10 year. But with IBR, you have 25 years to pay off the loan. This is the current loan that repayment plan that I am on. So my student loan when I first started was at over 500 a month. When I consolidated and got on the income base, when I first started paying, I was making a payment of about $88 a month. Now I'm making a payment of $117 a month. But due to the coronavirus, we are currently in an executive deferment, so that means I don't have to pay anything on the loan. But I'm going to get into income based more next week to give you more examples of how income based can be beneficial. I'm a huge advocate for income based right out of college because it is a lifesaver. You pay more over the life of the loan, but you get a payment that you can manage better. And that's the whole thing. You want something that you can manage. So this is just a chart, for example, of a student that took out a $35,000 loan with an interest rate of 4.6%, and the income was 30,000. So this is how much they will be paying over the life of the loan. So if we look at the 10-year standard, the initial payment was 366. The final payment was 366. The total they paid on a $35,000 loan was 43,934. In interest, they paid over 8,000, and it took them 10 years to pay it off. If we come down and look at income base, the initial payment from 366 was 156. But their final payment was, like I said, back to the original, it was 366. Instead of paying 43,000 on a $35,000 loan, they paid back 53,000. The total interest was $18,000. And if we look at the total time in repayment, instead of 10 years, it took them 15 years and 5 months to pay off the loan. And that is a $35,000 loan. And this studentloans.gov is where you can find all of this information out about your student loan, repayment calculators. This is where seniors will do their exit counseling to graduate. So you will get all of this, everything that I'm teaching you right now, you will have to do it again for your exit counseling as a senior. This is where you ask to be put on certain repayment plans. This is the website for all of that. And this is how you will log into that specific account. So that's exactly everything that I just went over. You will fill it out if you decide to go that route with this loan. Now, on next week, we will pick up with the income base, and then we will also be looking at postponing repayment and forbearance. Remember, please take notes from this because all of this that I just covered will be on your midterm. As we get closer to midterm, we probably will have a Zoom meeting to do a midterm study session. I will put the information out there to see which date is best in time for everyone. But that is probably what we will do. We will do a study session, just to make, because normally I like to do it if we were in person. We could feedback off each other with questions, but I want to make sure that you have this information. So next week we will be picking up with postponing repayment and forbearance. That is where we will begin next.